January 1951, the Warren Truck Assembly Plant, Mound Road, Warren, Michigan. A truck rolls off the production line, olive drab paint, a flat windshield, steel doors with roll-up glass windows, a canvas tarpaulin stretched across a wooden-floored cargo bed large enough for 8 soldiers to sit 4 to a side with rifles between their knees. It weighed less than 3 tons. Its engine produced 78 horsepower. It looked unimpressive. Officers scanning the specification sheet would have found nothing to celebrate. 78 horsepower entering service the same year jet fighters were breaking the sound barrier. An old-fashioned flathead engine borrowed from a 1930s passenger car design. A cargo capacity of 3/4 of a ton across difficult terrain. No armour, no weapons. Nothing to distinguish it from a civilian work truck except the colour and the identification plate bolted to the dashboard. It looked like a compromise. It looked like a vehicle built to fill a procurement checklist rather than fight a war. Over the next 3 decades, vehicles exactly like this one would carry wounded men out of frozen Korean mountain passes, haul ammunition through daily ambushes on Vietnamese jungle roads, be welded into improvised armoured fighting vehicles by soldiers who had no better option, equip the armies of more than 10 nations across 4 continents, and outlive the American vehicle officially designed to replace it. Not once, but twice. The United States Army would declare this truck finished. The truck would keep fighting anyway. Its designation was the M37, and it was the last purpose-built medium tactical truck the American military would ever commission until the Humvee arrived a full generation later. To understand why the M37 existed, you need to understand what it replaced and why that replacement was no longer enough. The Dodge WC series, the weapons carriers of the Second World War, had been good enough to supply Allied armies across North Africa, Northwest Europe, and the Pacific, but good enough to survive one war and good enough to win the next were not the same standard. The WC series ran on a 6-volt electrical system with no waterproofing. Rain, mud, or a stream crossing could kill the ignition entirely. The gearbox had no synchromesh in first or second gear, meaning inexperienced drivers ground the transmission apart on every shift. The cab was open-sided with canvas doors, offering no real protection against the kind of sub-zero temperatures that military planners by 1948 already understood could define the next conflict, and the body was wide enough to create serious problems on narrow mountain trails. In 1948, the United States Army commissioned Chrysler's Dodge division to design a replacement. Engineers spent nearly 2 years applying every lesson the WC series had taught at the cost of blood and broken machinery. 6 prototype vehicles, designated W37, emerged in early 1950. The first pre-production truck rolled off the line on December 14th, 1950, 6 months after the Korean War had already started. Mass production followed in January 1951. The improvements were fundamental. The M37 received a fully sealed 24-volt waterproof ignition system. No stream, no monsoon, and no submersion to 7 feet of depth would silence that engine. The transmission gained synchromesh in 3rd and 4th gears. Steel doors with roll-up glass replaced canvas. The body was narrowed to 73.5 inches, 8 inches slimmer than its predecessor, just narrow enough to pass through mountain defiles that would block a wider vehicle entirely. At the heart of the truck sat the Dodge T245, a flathead inline 6-cylinder engine displacing 230 cubic inches. It produced 78 brake horsepower and roughly 190 pound-feet of torque at low engine speeds. That torque figure is what moved a fully loaded truck up a 44-degree approach angle in low-range 4-wheel drive with wounded men in the back. A 2-speed transfer case dropped the entire drivetrain to a gear ratio low enough to walk the vehicle across ground that would swallow lighter machines. Top road speed was 55 miles per hour. This truck was not purchased for speed. The optional front winch pulled 7,500 pounds through 250 feet of wire rope. The deep water fording kit extended capability to 84 inches, 7 full feet, enough to submerge the hood and continue driving. That figure was not possible without the sealed 24-volt architecture. It was the whole point of building the electrical system from the ground up, rather than adapting something civilian. Every specification on the sheet was the answer to a question Korea was already asking. 20,000 of them shipped to the Korean peninsula before the armistice. Now, before we follow the M37 into combat, if this kind of deep dive into military history and engineering is something you value, hit subscribe. It costs nothing and it keeps this channel running. Korea was precisely the terrain the M37 had been engineered to conquer. Steep ridgelines, narrow passes, stream crossings that changed depth with every rainfall, and winters dropping to minus 35 degrees Fahrenheit. The WC series had struggled in conditions like these. The M37 did not. Medical units ran the M43 ambulance variant, built on a wheelbase 14 inches longer than the cargo version, with an enclosed patient compartment carrying 4 litter patients, or up to 8 seated casualties. That vehicle went where no commercial ambulance could follow and came back. Signal Corps teams ran the telephone maintenance variant, repairing communications lines cut by artillery. Standard cargo trucks fed the ammunition, rations and fuel that kept infantry battalions alive on exposed forward positions. The M37, in its multiple variants, was the circulatory system of American ground operations on the peninsula. Veterans who served near the 38th parallel in the years after the armistice described starting their M37s in temperatures that froze the lubricants in other vehicles, driving them through deep snow with chains on all 4 wheels, and never once losing the engine to cold or water. One veteran, asked about the transition to the later replacement truck, answered in one word: disappointed. Vietnam brought a different war, and it turned the M37 into something the engineers in Warren, Michigan had never imagined building. The 8th Transportation Group ran supply convoys from the coastal port at Queenon westward, along Route 19 to inland bases at An Key, Pleiku, and Buon Ma Thuot. Ambushes were not occasional. They were routine. 2 stretches of that road earned permanent names: Devil's Hairpin through An Key Pass, Ambush Alley below Mangyang Pass. On September 2nd, 1967, a single coordinated attack killed 7 drivers, wounded 17 more, and destroyed or disabled 30 trucks in one engagement. The 8th Transportation Group's answer was to stop accepting the role of victim and start fighting back. Mechanics welded 1/4-inch steel plate around the cargo beds of M37s. They fabricated pedestal mounts and bolted machine guns to them. Browning 50 caliber heavy machine guns, M60 general-purpose machine guns. The crews learned quickly that the 50 caliber could penetrate almost any cover the enemy placed in the jungle alongside the road, and it became the standard choice. The trucks were painted black. They were given names: Daughter of Darkness, Godzilla, Boss's Baby No. 2. They were called gun beeps, a nickname drawn from the M37's unofficial field title. The Beep, the vehicle bigger than a Jeep. Lieutenant Ralph Fuller commanded convoys from the vehicle named Daughter of Darkness. He survived every ambush on Route 19. He died years after returning home from complications related to Agent Orange exposure, before a recreation of his truck could be completed. The 8th Transportation Group earned the Presidential Unit Citation for its service. It remains the only transportation group in Vietnam awarded the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. The M37's wars did not end in Southeast Asia. In El Salvador in 1984, Colonel Oswaldo Marenco Carballo designed an armoured personnel carrier built on the M37B1 chassis. The United States Army produced 66 armour kits, dual hardness steel plate with Kevlar lining, shipped to El Salvador and fitted in country. The resulting vehicle, the Cachewat, carried 10 soldiers in its armoured body, or mounted a 50 caliber machine gun in a compact turret. 41 were still in active service by 2007. The M37B1, a chassis conceived in 1948, was still fighting a civil war 36 years after the engineering team at Chrysler considered the design final. Greece and Spain operated M37s well into the late 1980s. South Korea kept them in service for decades after the armistice. Israel ran them through the 1970s before transitioning to a domestic vehicle built on a closely related Dodge chassis. The M37 served in at least 10 nations across 4 continents. Several of those nations were still operating them long after the American Army had replaced them, and then replaced the replacement. On paper, the Soviet GAZ-63 was more capable, carrying nearly 3 times the payload across comparable terrain. In practice, the GAZ-63 was so prone to rollover from its dangerously high center of gravity that the Soviets were forced into emergency development of an entirely new replacement vehicle. Its electrical system was unprotected. Its maximum fording depth was 31 inches. The M37 forded 84. The GAZ-63 engine was a Soviet copy of a Chrysler Flathead, making the 2 trucks distant cousins, products of the same foundational design on opposite sides of the Cold War. The American Army officially replaced the M37 in 1968 with the Kaiser Jeep M715. Reserve and National Guard units largely refused to accept the change. The M715 was underpowered and fragile by comparison, and the Army replaced it again within 8 years. When the transition to the next generation of vehicles was managed in the mid-1970s, the program discovered 31,000 M37s still in active service, more than a decade after the truck had officially been declared obsolete. The M37 had outlived its replacement in American service. It outlasted 2 further replacements in foreign service. The Humvee reached American units in 1985. 34 years after the first M37 left Warren, Michigan. Today, several thousand M37s survive in civilian hands. Collectors pay between $4,500 and $25,000 for running examples. A heavily modified example sold at Barrett-Jackson in January 2025 for $71,500. Parts suppliers in Iowa, Minnesota, and North Carolina sustain a restoration market that shows no sign of slowing. The truck the Army declared finished 3 times remains one of the most actively maintained military vehicles in the American collector community. January 1951, Warren, Michigan. A truck that looked like nothing. 78 horsepower, 3/4 of a ton of payload. No armor, no weapons, no speed, no prestige. It could not keep up with modern highway traffic. It had no night vision. It had no air conditioning. Its flathead engine was a pre-war design. Its fuel economy was poor, its cab was cramped, and yet it fought in Korea. It fought in Vietnam, it fought in El Salvador, it equipped the armies of Greece, Spain, South Korea, and Israel. It outlived the vehicle purpose-built to replace it. It was still active on 4 continents 34 years after the first one left the production line. That is not fortune. That is what happens when engineers solve the right problems completely rather than solving every problem partially. The M37 was not glamorous. It was not fast. It was not powerful, it was right. And in the field, right is the only specification that survives.